Leicester City's fall from grace reached a new low last night. Incredible. Relegated to the third tier, Andy, a decade on. With Big Wes Morgan on yesterday. It's absolutely incredible. 10 years ago, they were celebrating a 5,001 Premier League title. Five years ago, I said 2001, lifted the FA Cup and nearly qualified for the Champions League. Now it's League One for a squad which last night included 13 players from last season's relegation. Joining us now for more on the financial ramifications for Leicester's relegation, or what will happen to Leicester moving forward, is football finance expert Kieran Maguire. Kieran, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate your time this morning. I mean, this is just it's a disaster for the fans, it's a disaster for the club, but financially, can you give us some kind of indication what kind of toll this will take in the club?
I think it is huge in the sense that last year Leicester earned £117 million from TV money. They're due to receive parachute payments this season and next season, but they've effectively taken out a payday loan on those, and they've received the money up front. So therefore, next year they'll only be getting around about £2 million from the EFL. From the League One TV deal. The average wage bill in League One is around about £9 million. Leicester's last season was 150. So how they're going to manage that change, and since 2018 they've lost £401 million is really difficult. I mean, no bank's going to want to touch them. You'll have players who will have relegation clauses for contracts on dropping down for the Championship, but nobody would have factored in League One next season.
You took the words. You've answered my next question, Kieran. I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. So where does that must leave the club in a heck of a precarious situation if players haven't, and you're right, some of them will probably have bits in the contract or a clause in the contract if they get relegated from the top flight, but probably not into Division 1. Where does that leave the club?
Well, it leaves the club. It will either have to sell players. Now, whether there will be a market for those players, given the level of performance this season and the level of wages that they're on, I think that will be a challenge. And therefore, it becomes very dependent upon the owner to dig them out. And the fact that what Leicester have been doing in the last few years is that every time they've sold a player, and when you sell players these days, it's on instalments. So when they sold James Maddison, it was 3 or 4 payments from Spurs over a period of 3 to 4 years. And what Leicester did, they took those instalments and they cashed those in. So I don't think they've got a lot of money coming in. So realistically, there's going to have to be a fire sale. And the other thing is the owner is going to have to dig the club out. And that's something we've noticed has been very evident that it's not been happening in recent years, because they've tended to borrow instead. And if you're borrowing from financial institutions, they've got no love of football. They're in it purely for the money. The interest charges are going up. It really does now come down to the level of commitment from the owner, which has been missing in recent years.
Wow. I mean, Kieran, you talk about a fire sale. I mean, they're literally going to have to give everybody away. They're going to have to, because if their wage bill is still significant, which by the sounds of it is, with some of those players, then literally players are going to be walking out the door and they're going to have to start again.
And here's the obvious question, Kieran, with the greatest of respect, the players' value, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Particularly, we just mentioned 13 players that have been involved in kind of 2 relegations or whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you say the players will walk away. Well, the average wage at Leicester last season was £67,000 a week. And if they've got a contract which is another 2 or 3 years remaining, they can say to Leicester, you either pay us up or we stick around, because the players' first responsibilities are towards their families, not the club owner. So Leicester can't rip up contracts just because they've been relegated twice, and you'll have this legacy issue in terms of a wage bill. You've also got the fact that Leicester owed substantial amounts on the players that they bought when they got to the Premier League. Looking at my spreadsheet, they owe £81 million at the end of last season for unpaid transfer fees when they tried to stay up last year. And that's a further burden. So it's a real pinch point in that I can't see much money coming in, and they've got significant obligations in terms of the money's going out.
Amazing.
Kieran, just a quick one before I let you go, on probably another depressing note for Chelsea. What would the financial impact be in them? No, never mind no Champions League, no football at all in Europe.
Well, it really is Champions League or nothing. You lose money to a certain extent if you qualify for the Conference League. So it will be very challenging for Chelsea. Players will have clauses in their contracts. Normally, you're looking at a 20 to 25% drop at the elite end if you don't qualify for the Champions League. That will cushion the blow a little bit. But Chelsea lost £262 million last year, and that's despite selling the women's stadium to the women's team. That's despite selling players to Strasbourg, which was very beneficial, and the other weird transactions that they've had in recent years. So they again have a financial challenge, and they're under an embargo in effect from UEFA, which restricts what they can do in the transfer market.
Amazing stuff.
Kieran, incredible, mate. Thanks very much
Kieran,
for
thank you.
Your information and passing that on to us, mate. Really appreciate your time this morning, Kieran. Thanks again, mate.
Cheers.
That's unbelievable.
That is it. Once football clubs
lost last year.
Once they get away from your football clubs, right, they are like, they're just bottomless pits, aren't they? And you are
a runaway train, isn't it?
You are spiralling, mate, into the abyss. You really are. And that is desperate to hear some of those numbers there that Kieran was just talking about for Leicester City. My goodness me, where do they go from here? And how do they start again? You know, I mean, that
they're going to have to start. I mean, they're going to have to.
When you was at Rangers, right, and the situation they found themselves in.
Oh, mate, I'm proper starting again.
I mean, that was literally.
I had 4 players turn up for pre-season. Have a think about that.
4 players.
4 players, right?
Did you go, come on, you 4, we can do this. Come on, we can get this sorted out.
Couldn't even get a 5-a-side team.